Hi everybody, welcome back to Embrace the Journey with Sharon. I have a very cool guest today. Her name is Lauren Mitchell, and she is with a Sarasota-based band called the Lauren Mitchell Band. And let me tell you, if you haven't seen her, if you haven't heard her, you're missing out, because this woman, I have had the honor of seeing, not as much as I should and more to come, but she touches you deep down. She touches you deep down into your soul and shares it, and shares her love of the music. It channels through her. Soul music channels through her. So we have her on today for a couple of things. One, I want to hear her story, because part of what I know of it is very inspiring and very powerful. And so you all know that's the intention behind the show. And she is releasing a new CD, so we want to let the world know about it. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So your story, your journey, share, just bring us back.
Well, I've been singing all my life. My mom and dad and grandmother encouraged me to sing in church when I was very young, and put me in voice lessons by the time I was 9 years old. It continued throughout my life. Music has always been a huge part of my life ever since then. And my dad, I remember my father playing some old soul and blues records, a lot of Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin. I remember him playing Lead Belly, and things like that around the house when I was little. So I think that's kind of where it comes from. I had that sound in my ear. I was classically trained all the way through college. And somewhere around about my junior year, I kind of rediscovered a love of that, soul and blues music. And that's where this part of the journey kind of picked up. I spent a few years not playing and just kind of in my 20s, finding out, I guess, who I was. And at that point, I was working in restaurants, waiting tables, bartending, eventually managing a restaurant here in Sarasota.
So is the dream still there?
It was always there, but I think sometimes it was a little, it was kind of more on the back burner. I guess there are points in our lives where I don't want to say that we ever give up on it, but this thing that you're taught, that society kind of puts upon you, is that who can really be a rock star, who can live out that dream, and you get to a place where you kind of see yourself going on another realistic path, a 9-to-5 job, exactly.
I got to get the white picket fence or whatever it is.
Exactly. And so I don't want to say that I had really given up on it, but I had kind of reconciled myself to, okay, I've been working in restaurants all these years, and now I've got a management job, and this is probably the path that my life is going to take, my boss, the owner of the restaurant that I was running, a very smart man, actually, after about a year of employment and doing a pretty good job for them, let me go. And his reasoning was that he could tell I wasn't happy. And I was upset about that for probably about 48 hours and it was a bruise to the ego, I didn't see it coming.
Unexpected, yeah.
Completely unexpected. I didn't see it coming. I had been given a raise, we just had a couple of great meetings, things like that, and had no idea that was coming. It really shook me. And I guess that was the turning point for me, where I realized that I was now going to have the time and to actually do what it was that I had been wanting to do. I had a very dear friend of mine who is our keyboard player. His name is Mike, in the band with me. And I talked to Mike about it, and I said, I can't believe this. He and I had been working together for 8 years on and off on different projects, different bands. Nothing had really ever done what we wanted it to, but we continued to remain friends, and I would go over there and hang out occasionally and, play some music and that sort of thing. But I called him up and I said, you're not going to believe this. They fired me from my job. And
did that resonate with you at that moment when he said you're not happy? Did you feel that?
Not right then.
Not right then.
Not right then. I knew I wasn't happy. In my heart and in my soul. I'm not embarrassed about it because things have changed incredibly in my life, but it was to the point where I was drinking heavily, and eating bad food, and not exercising, and those kind of things.
We sedate those feelings.
Exactly, and it was showing.
Yeah.
And so when I was let go from the job, and like I said, I was upset about it for about 48 hours until I talked to my friend Mike and my fiance at the time, and it was like through talking to my friends and people that were very close to me, I realized it was like, oh wow, this guy was right. I'm not happy. So it was kind of like, well, because I was in good standing with the company, I was able to, file for unemployment. And what that did was, in the interim, before I was able to get another job, it provided me with time. The bills were paid. I was not getting rich on unemployment, I will tell you that much. But the bills were paid, and so it freed up that part of my mind. That stress was relieved. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I realized that stress was going to be relieved from my life, I was able to completely let go. And I called up my friend Mike and I said, all right, you're right, let's do this. This is this thing that we've been wanting to do for, at that point it was about 7 years. And I said, we've been wanting to do this for a long time. I said, let's do it. And he says, all right, let's do it.
So it freed you up from the stress.
Yes.
Which many of us have.
The day-to-day, how am I going to keep a roof over my head?
Yeah,
exactly.
What are people going to think?
Yes.
All of that.
Yes.
And when you made the decision to call him up, was there still fear? Was there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what'd you do with that?
I think, I don't know, honestly. That's a real good question. I'm not somebody who really believes that fear is an appropriate response unless you are in physical danger of something. Do I get nervous before a big show? Yes, but that's different than fear. It was a little... It was nerve-wracking because I didn't know what the outcome would be. But I guess maybe... I don't want to call it fear. I don't know. I wasn't afraid, but I was unsure.
You were stepping out.
Yeah, was I unsure? Yes.
You were stepping into what everybody had been telling you is possibly not available to you.
Right.
And there's something inside of you that found the courage to say, I'm going for it.
Yeah. Well, I think having had the training, over the years, and on pretty much every occasion that I have ever opened my mouth to sing, I've never been told that it was bad. Yeah. So it was kind of like, I can do this, and I knew I had a really good friend behind me. I knew my family was behind me. My family has encouraged me to sing, like I said, since I was a child, and so I thought, well, why not? This is kind of what I've always wanted to do. So let's just go for broke and see what happens, and the next thing I knew, the phone was ringing off the hook, and, we were busy. So the band was playing.
Now, how did the band start? Was it just you and Mike, and was it called the Lauren Mitchell Band when you started it?
It was called the Lauren Mitchell Band when we started it. That was kind of something that I was a little reluctant to come to. I was trying to come up with like a clever name for a group. And again, Mike insisted. He said, you are the show. This man's been an absolute inspiration to me. He says to me, you are the show. He says, people are not coming to see me. They do not care who's playing behind you. So long as it's good music, they are coming to see you. Yeah. And this is about you. He says,
so
you are the
good. He
really did.
Gift.
He really did. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And so that was, so I finally said, okay, well, I'll step up and I'll own this and we'll put my name on it. And, the response that I received from the first time that we played out, I have to give a shout out to my friend Bruce Familio at the Flying Dog Cafe. He was the first person in Sarasota to book us for a show. And at that point, it was just myself and Mike and a drummer. We didn't have a bass player. We didn't have a guitar player. We had some guys who came and showed up and, jammed with us a little bit, but no one who really, was invested.
What was your intention when you stepped out on the stage that first night? What was your intention? Were you seeing past that night, or was your intention just in that moment of stepping out on that stage that night?
I think that looking back, as I went to perform that night, it was mostly about getting through the night, as that was the first show that I had performed under my own name and as the Lauren Mitchell Band. But something that has always been my intention since I started this project about 2 years ago was, and I'll tell anybody this who asks, I'm sure there are several of you out there who have heard me say this, is that I'm going to take it as far as the good Lord will let me. My faith is something that is very important to me, something that has also been a part of this journey. And I feel that that's something that is, leading me through this.
Yeah. I think faith plays a huge part in anybody who has a dream.
Absolutely.
Because we do have so many outside influences that are out there that are saying it's not possible, you can't do it. And I always refer back to the Wright brothers and say, these are men who are going to put an object up in the sky to fly in, and they were bike mechanics, and how many people told them, and how you can't do that, it's not possible, this, that, or the other thing. And faith, for me anyway, is believing in something that I can't see, but that I know. It's inside, it's there. It's the soul, it really is. So bring us back to, okay, so now you're on the stage, and take us to where we are now with the release of your CD.
Yeah, it's been really an incredible journey over the last not quite 2 years. Just to think, it's kind of overwhelming to me sometimes to think that, now I've got my own album that's out, music that belongs to me, that, some very, very talented musicians have either written for me or helped me write. And that, less than 2 years ago, I didn't even have a band together and was just trying to, get through a night and make sure that everybody, knew the right songs and that we could manage.
But you've always had that voice.
But the voice has always, it's always been there, and it's changing, and I'm learning new things about it every day. It's my instrument. I was taught, like I said, I was trained classically, and I have always been taught to regard my voice as my instrument, that it's not just this thing that I have. You have to learn how to play it. You have to learn proper technique. You have to learn all of these things. And I know that all of that is serving me very well these days. But yeah, we played that show at the Flying Dog, and the next thing I knew, the phone was ringing off the hook. I went out to visit some club owners that I had played with, that I had played for when I was in previous bands, and said to them, hey, I've got my own thing together. And it was usually very well received. And so we started playing out a couple nights a week, found, a great bass player, a great guitarist. And now we're traveling. We just played in Tallahassee, a room that actually has been in existence for at least 90 years. It's literally an old juke joint, and the mojo in the place is absolutely amazing. Has been there a long time, and like people like Muddy Waters and Ray Charles and a lot of
Just
greats,
that
John Lee
energy,
Hooker, yes, all of the greats have
floating
played this
essence.
place, and now we're getting to play in these kind of rooms as well, and it's really exciting. And I believe that I have finally, through this process, that I've finally been able to find my voice.
Hence the name. What's the name of your album?
Well, the album is called Please Come Home. It is a track that it's the title of one of the tracks that's on the album, but it references, as I've gone through this and I really started to think about it, it has referenced my journey that I've gone through, and I believe my spirituality, coming home to my religion and my faith. That's been a big part of it. Coming home to my music and to these things that I remember, my dad playing for me when I was a little kid, and coming home to that sound that I've always really loved and that has always been in my ears, and coming home to this music that is soul and blues and, is also truly one of the only American music art forms that is out there.
Yeah.
It kind of started it all. It really started rock and roll, and it was very historically, if you look at it,
share that
country comes from it all too. It all comes from that.
Two things. One, I've heard you say that you feel most at home on the stage.
I do.
Yeah.
I I've shared this with other performers, and I don't know that anybody who's not a performer can truly understand, but there is a moment when the music comes and the band is playing and I get to step on the stage and I look out there and there are all of these people and they're waiting for me to open my mouth and sing. And there is something that just absolutely sets me free about that. I can do anything. I can take over the world while I'm up there, and it's really amazing.
Tie that feeling. You shared a story with me the other day about a woman that you met on the side of the road, and just what you said ties perfectly into that.
Well, I was fortunate enough to get to make the trip of a lifetime this past summer. Started out as what was going to be kind of a working vacation. I was hooked up with, through a friend, thank you, Randy, who knows a music producer in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Clarksdale, Mississippi is part of what is known as the Delta region, and there is a very specific sound and a very specific type of blues. Some of the earliest blues comes from the Delta.
Okay.
So it's also, Clarksdale is also known as ground zero for the blues, or the birthplace of the blues. A lot of cotton plantations were around there, and turn of the century and that sort of thing. And the blues actually comes from African music when the slaves were brought over. And these people, I met this lady alongside the road while we were traveling to Clarksdale, alongside, the legendary Highway 61. There are several stops that you can make along what's known as the Blues Trail, which is actually funded by the state of Mississippi and the National Endowment for the Arts. And I would encourage anyone who is into this kind of music, go make the trip, do the Blues Trail, you'll love it. And there was a stop alongside Highway 61 where there was the birthplace of a great blues pianist named Pinetop Perkins. It's really just kind of an open field, but they are now constructing what will eventually be a museum to this man, Pinetop Perkins. Okay. He was born there. It was the Perkins plantation, and they believe that they have one of the little row houses, which is just like a room, a one-room shack where he was possibly born. But they know that he was born there on the Perkins plantation. I stopped there. It was, the place is under construction. I think it was like a Monday afternoon, and I thought, I'm going to go knock on this door, and see if there's anybody in there, because I don't know when I'm going to get to come through here again. And I might as well go see if maybe somebody will be nice and let me take a peek, So I went up, I knocked on the door, and nobody answered. And I was getting back in the car, getting ready to get back in the car to leave. And lo and behold, a lady stepped out of the door. She says, "Can I help you?" And well, I told her, what I was doing, that I was a musician, that I was doing the Blues Trail on my way to Clarksdale. And we started talking about it. And I learned from this lady about what this music really means. And I've always known that kind of when you sing the blues, you're taking something that is negative. You know, you take this situation, you know, your man left you, or you know, these kinds of sorrows, and you get to turn it around into a sound that is joyful. And so I've always identified with that, and that's part of what makes the blues special to me, is that it is kind of a release of that negativity. And this lady, Helen Sims, stood along Highway 61, and this is a woman who, I'm not sure how old she was, but I'm believing she was probably in her late 60s or early 70s, and had worked in a field and had picked cotton, and her parents had been slaves. And she told me that this music is actually a song of victory, because these people who had been brought over and who had been indentured, and when they were in the field and they didn't think that their bodies could take it anymore, that they used the music to lift their spirits in order to be able to get through the day. And that is the victory that is in this music, is that you take the pain and you take the sorrow, and it propels you through, and it propels your soul, and it propels your spirit to keep going on.
Yeah, I have chills from that. That resonates with me so much, and this is I could go on, and hopefully you'll come back and see us again.
Absolutely.
But I think that's the perfect way to end an amazing time spent with you. And I want to remind you all what it's all about, which is embracing the journey, because when you do, life becomes